Hey, what's up, guys? So this time, in the last video, we took the parsing of a file, but we did it specific to that particular record or data type. So in this case, let's take and get rid of this, and let's see if we can make something more generic that we can use. And what we'll do is, instead of doing all of this, we'll take and create it into a class, and let's define a class. Let's call it the let's call it the generic reader. So, and let's go ahead and actually create the classes for it. So let's create a class for it. And let's call this the CSV Reader. Okay. And we'll define the CSV Reader in a second. And the CSV Reader will have, of course, a public interface, which will have the file that you want to read. So we'll say the constructor, we won't worry too much about it. We'll just say it's a CSV Reader. And it doesn't do anything. And then we'll create a read that's going to read, and it's going to return a generic CSV line. So let's create another class, just so we'll have it there. And it'll be a CSV line. And a CSV line will also have a public section for the interface, and constructor will just be a empty constructor. And we'll say that the line will parse. We'll just have a parse method or parse member function. And what this will take, it'll take a line and then return nothing. It'll be void, but it'll have some interesting things. But I don't like the C++, the Visual Studio way of doing this. So let's go ahead and define our class properly. And it's I'm doing this all wrong. I don't know what I'm thinking, but it's supposed to be if not defined. If not defined, CSV line age. And we'll end this here. And the only thing that this thing is going to do is it's going to parse the line. And of course, in order for it to recognize string, we need to include string. And we'll also need to include string, ss string, or string. And using namespace std. That way we don't have to say all that other stuff that goes with it. And when it parses the line, one thing that we want to do is we want to be able to get a column value, right? So one of the things that we want to have is void, and we'll say get string. We'll get string, and we'll say which column number. Like this. We'll also get double. And we'll also get int. And I think that's probably good enough for now. We don't even have to say column number. We'll just say which column you want. And for this one, we'll just say that we can get the string, the double, or the int, and that's the interface. And I'm not going to go into separating this into a separate file. I'm just going to go ahead and take this once it parses the line, right? So we're going to parse the line, and we can take some of the lessons learned from this individual where it takes and parses the line. We'll just, well, let's go ahead and try to create it because it'll probably be easier if we just create it. Actually, since we do have the CPP file, let's go ahead and put it in the CPP files. Let's do that. We should have a destructor, so. Okay. And in order to parse the line, and what we're going to need is we are going to need maybe an array of strings. I think that would probably work out best. So I was thinking initially that we could have a map, but it's probably best if we have like a vector or something. So let's go ahead and include vector. And let's go ahead and take all these methods and let's go ahead and implement them in the CPP file. So we'll take in the CSV line, take all these methods, and of course we have to qualify them with CSV line. Let's take and copy that over to all of these. And so when we parse the line, we are going to parse it. Now, one of the things about it is we're going to just parse it with commas. If you want to later on modify it to parse by something else, then by all means, go ahead and do it. As a matter of fact, you know what? It'd be probably a good idea. Let's say that parse line does have a character that we want to parse by, and we'll say delimiter. And by default, it'll be comma. But you can always switch it to something else. And so let's go back over to the CPP file. And actually, it's in the H file, not the CPP file. We already did it in the H file. So let's go ahead and put it there in the parse. Okay, let's save it all. Let's go back to the CPP file. And here, we want to get the one of the things is, oops, I put it in the wrong place. That's not what I'm supposed to be getting. I'm supposed to be putting it here. There we go. And so we're gonna need the string, string, and we'll just call it the inline. And then we pass it the line. And we'll say while get line. And we pass it the inline. And we pass it the delimiter. And it doesn't like this because, let's see what we're missing. How did we do it here? When we get the input stream, we have to get line into something. Okay, so let's go back. So what we need is the string. We'll just call it column, temporary column. We'll pass it to temporary column. Like that. And now what we need to do is in our CSV line, we need a private vector, which we're going to have a vector of strings, and we're going to call it, we'll just call it values. How about that? We'll call it values. I'll leave it like that, values. And so when we go over to the CPP, we'll say values dot pushback inline temporary column. And our values has the temporary column. And so we're done parsing the line. Now, when it comes time to get a value out of it, so we can just say return values, and we'll say column. And when it comes time to getting the double, and actually this should have been double, and this should have been int, like this. But we'll also have to change the H file because that needs to be string. This needs to be double. And this needs to be int. So we go back over to our line, and this is going to be string double. And so in this case, we just return, values. We actually need to return A to F. Is it A to double? Is it A to double? I'm not sure if there's an A to double. Let's just do A to F. No, let me find it. Is there really a A to double in C++? Let's see. I guess it's just A to F. So let's go ahead and take the values column, and this needs to be a C string because it doesn't take just regular strings. And this one would be return A to I values, and then column. Now, keep in mind one thing, that here, what could happen is that the column goes beyond the bounds, and we don't care about that. The programmer that's using this needs to know that they're within the bounds or they're not within the bounds, and they're going to get an error if they try to exceed the bounds of the columns that they have, and they're going to find out probably the hard way. We could probably be more robust and give something more descriptive, but for now, this is good enough. So we have the line parses, it does what it does, doesn't do much. And then when we go to the CSV Reader, the CSV Reader is going to do the job of actually reading the file. So what the CSV Reader is going to have, it's going to read the lines and have a vector of basically of CSV lines, and we'll just call it lines. The other thing about this, of course, like we said before, if not defined, CSV Reader H, and then we define so we need to include vector. And that gives us vector, but we probably need to say using namespace std. That's because the vectors, all those templates are part of the standard library. So we'll do that. And then the only thing that we have to do is a couple of things. One of them is to parse. We could actually just say void parse and probably give it the file name. And then we'll need to actually have a file. So we need f-string. And so here we can just read the file. And we'll read the file name. We'll read the file name, and then while we'll say while get line, and we're gonna need a line, a string line, and we'll read the line. One thing about it is that, like, if it has headers, it's something to be concerned about. That will probably what we need to do in this case is to know a Boolean if it has header equals false. We'll default it to false. So we can actually say if has header, we'll just get the line, then we'll throw it away. And we'll throw away the line, and we'll just say line. Actually, the line should have been declared above it. And it doesn't look like it has the line, so we need to include IOStream, and we need to include CSV line. And then when we're getting the line, we're going to read from the input file, get the line. We're going to create a line. And we are going to parse the line. And then we pass it the line. We'll leave the default delimiter. And we are going to take the line and push it to our vector. So we just push the CSV line. And that's all we have to do for parsing. Now, what we also need is a way to get the lines that we have read. So we can take and say, we can take a vector. And you know, in reality, I mean, we probably don't even need to do that. All we need to do is, we probably don't even need to do any of this. we don't even need to do any of this because all we have to do is just return the vector. Of CSV lines. And it just, except that now we have to declare the vector in here. And what we probably want to do is this gets a little tricky sometimes because we want to have copy constructors. So we're probably going to have to add copy constructors for our CSV lines. So we'll have to do that, but let's go ahead and return lines. We may get some compiler errors, but I think for the CSV lines, we will need a copy constructor. And we'll just have to say, you know, we'll have to take the values from the other. And probably better to move it. Oh, there's no parentheses there. We'll just copy the values over. And we probably need to also overload the constructor. So we need to have a CSV line and overload the assignment operator. And same thing as the copy constructor. And just values equal other dot values like that. And so now that gets us the line, that gets us the reader. We have one thing I wanted to do though, even though I was coding it all here, I wanted to take this and put it over on the CSV Reader CPP. And just like that, save it all. Now, if we go to the main program where we're reading all this and doing all this reading and reading the student records, let's change all of this. Let's just get rid of all this. And let's create let's include the CSV Reader. And let's include the CSV line. And let's go ahead and take a CSV Reader. Reader shouldn't be parsed. That's a bad name. Reader should be read. Okay, it should be read. And so we need to change that to say read. More descriptive of what it's doing. So we'll just say read, and we'll pass it the file name. The file name is going to be in our temp where we're reading it before. Student records.csv has header true. And then we take our vector of vector of CSV line equal to that. And let's go ahead and parse through those lines. So now we can say for auto line in lines, and we can take, and at this point we could take and do something with them, like read them into other objects or whatever the case may be. But in this case, all we're gonna do is we're gonna say the line has we're gonna need to know what each item is, right? Like, so in our case, we know that there was for example, let's do a C out here, and I need IOStream for that. And so I'm going to output the ID, and I'm just going to say line dot get string 0. I'm going to output the last name. We know that's a column 1. I'm going to output the first name. And then after the first name came, I believe, the age. And notice I'm just putting the column numbers next to them. And so then after that is the phone number. And then finally the GPA. Get double 5 endo. And then see out one more endo. And just to make them all line up, looks like phone number is still ahead by a little bit. Make them all line up, and we should be getting the lines here. Let's see if we got everything right. Let's see if we actually, I rarely get something on the first build. So let's see if we got it right. See if it builds. Okay, see what we got. Missing a semicolon there. What else? It says redefinition default argument. Oh, I thought, that's interesting. Oh. Okay. I thought you were supposed to do it on both, but I guess not. That was that error. Let's see if it builds this time. Okay. Redefinition, all same thing here. Okay. And it succeeded. Let's see if it runs. And there you are. And we got everything out. And you notice this time, so what's the big difference between what we had this time and what we had the last time? Well, it provides a cleaner solution and it's more generic. And now what you can do is take these two classes, and anytime you need to parse lines, you just use that. So you could just take and hide all that logic in a couple of files, and now you can take these values and get your, you wouldn't have to rewrite all that code every time. So you just take that and use it. So I'll go ahead and post the code. And if you like this video, I mean, you want to see any more videos like this, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give it 2 thumbs down. And go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more videos. Thanks for watching.